My name is Kurt Angle. I'm an Olympic gold medalist, and I'm the greatest professional wrestler on this planet.
How many a day was it?
65 a day. Extra strength Vicodin. Approximately 2,200 pills a month.
For a variety of personal reasons, Kurt Angle was given an unconditional release from his contract.
But I'm a wrestling machine!
On the amateur wrestling scene, doing things like becoming a Pennsylvania state wrestling champion in high school, attending Clarion University of Pennsylvania, becoming a two-time NCAA Division I national champion, a three-time NCAA finalist, and a four-time All-American, before trying his hand in the Olympics where he went on to win a gold medal on a broken freaking neck.
And the accolades go on and on and...
What did you do this morning? What's up, guys? It's Koze here. If you're a fan of wrestling or wrestling-related content, consider subscribing, as we're on the road to 10,000 subs, and this channel covers wrestling both inside and outside the ring. But without further ado, let's get into it. Seemingly at the top of the world of amateur wrestling, Kurt would end up deciding to test the waters in professional wrestling, where in October of 1996, Kurt would be invited to the ECW show High Incident, even providing commentary for the match between Taz and Little Guido. And, well, later that night,
Most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
and yeah, saying you're thinking about trying professional wrestling and then starting off with ECW is like saying you want to eat healthy and then just strictly eating rice cakes. The sight of Raven crucifying Sandman using barbed wire completely mortified Kurt. In fact, he would end up leaving the building immediately and then told Paul Heyman if he ever aired the footage, he would sue the company of ECW. But in 1998, his opinion started to change. Angle would begin watching Raw as War and quickly became a fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What?
Join the club, am I right? Nah, I was probably like a year old. Later that year, the WWF gave him another tryout, and 3 days later, they offered him a 5-year contract. And after just 1 year of being in developmental, by November of 19, and in order to give his Olympic background credibility amongst the WWF fans, Angle went undefeated for his first 2 months in the company.
Oh, it's true.
Before losing to Taz at the Royal Rumble of 2000. And even then, Taz is literally known as the human suplex machine. So this didn't really damage his credibility. In fact, a month later, on the February 10th, 2000 episode of Smackdown, Angle would win the European Championship against Val Venus, followed by winning the Intercontinental Championship from Chris Jericho at No Way Out, just 2 weeks later, leading to the birth of the Eurocontinental Champion, Kurt Angle with hair. And after bragging for weeks, justifiably so, he began feuding with Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit for both championships, culminating in a pretty unique two-fall triple threat match at WrestleMania 2000, where Benoit would pin Jericho for the Intercontinental Championship and Jericho would pin Benoit for the European Championship. It was a pretty stiff match. It happened on what many consider one of the worst WrestleManias of all time, so that's probably why I don't hear about it often, but still pretty good. Soon after, Angle would begin teaming with Edge and Christian. They feuded with Too Cool and Rikishi. The mini feud led them to the finals of the King of the Ring tournament, where Angle would pick up the win, becoming King of the Ring, be granted a championship opportunity at SummerSlam, and then fall in love with Stephanie McMahon.
You know that I always thought you were handsome.
Stephanie would get knocked out during a tag team match, causing Kurt to leave mid-match and rush her to the back. And once she came to, she kisses Kurt Angle, mistaking him for Triple H. And I guess it's possible. I mean, maybe they both smelled like baby oil? This ended up setting up a love triangle between Stephanie, Kurt, and Triple H, while simultaneously setting up a triple threat match between Triple H, The Rock, and Kurt Angle at SummerSlam for the WWF Championship. And though Kurt didn't win the match, perhaps he got something even better. A concussion. Okay, hear me out. During the match, Triple H would go for a pedigree on the announce table. However, it broke as soon as he went to jump for it, causing all of Triple H's weight to come crashing down on Angle's head and leading him to be rushed to the back on a stretcher before coming back out and finishing the match. And Kurt credits this as being the moment he felt Vince McMahon trusted him to carry the championship after showing he was a quote-unquote team player. Okay, it's probably still not worth the concussion, but you know what I meant. This is probably why just 2 months later, he would go on to beat The Rock at No Mercy on October 22nd, 2000 to win his first WWF Championship. The love triangle storyline ended up being dropped after Triple H started to get uncomfortable about the whole thing.
What happened is after that certain kiss, I think, there might have been a couple people uncomfortable about it and decide not to continue on the storyline.
After just 1 year, Kurt Angle had a brief undefeated streak, was a double champion, won King of the Ring, and won the WWE Championship. Now you tell me, who had the better year, Kurt Angle in 2000 or Stephanie Vaquer in 2025? He'd go on to hold on to the title throughout the rest of the year, where he would beat The Undertaker at Survivor Series, which is kinda cool because both of them debuted at Survivor Series. 2 weeks later, SmackDown GM Mick Foley would make the match official, setting up the first ever 6-man Hell in a Cell match at Armageddon, consisting of everybody Kurt was beefing with throughout the year. And after surviving the Hell in a Cell, he would retain the championship against Triple H the next month at the Royal Rumble 2001, before dropping the title back to The Rock at No Way Out the next month, in order to set up Rock vs. Austin at WrestleMania X7. And just watching back this brief title run reminded me of how much star power they really had back then. After dropping the title, he began feuding with Chris Benoit, beating him at WrestleMania X7 in what was a pretty good match on what was one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. The two would have an ultimate submission match the next month at Backlash, where Benoit would pick up the win, and Angle would win the rubber match at Judgment Day in a 2 out of 3 falls match. And in mid-2001, the WWF would end up buying WCW and ECW, leading to the Invasion angle with hair.
Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. Jimmy crack corn.
WCW and ECW end up invading the WWF. WrestleMania X7 saw Stone Cold join forces with Vince McMahon, causing him to be Vince's #1 guy during the start of the invasion. Vince then questions if Stone Cold even still has enough passion and desire to lead the WWF, and Kurt took this opportunity to try and prove himself. And he would do this by facing off against Shane McMahon at King of the Ring 2001. However, earlier that night, he would compete in the King of the Ring tournament, facing off against Christian before meeting Edge in the finals, where Edge would pick up the win. Meaning Kurt's match with Shane McMahon was his 3rd match of the night. And this may be the most violent match that either of these two have ever had in WWE.
I couldn't even feel anything. My hands were sticking straight out and they were shaking.
Kurt would try and suplex Shane through what he thought was sugar glass, and it turned out to be plexiglass, causing Shane to bounce off and hit his head on the concrete floor twice. He ended up being severely concussed from this, while Kurt had multiple injuries and cuts from the glass.
Shane was kind of out of it, but he said, "Throw me through it again." And I thought, oh man, this kid is crazy. I'm in excruciating pain.
Seriously, at some point, it was uncomfortable to watch. 5 out of 5 Don Cheadles. And Kurt was slowly turning babyface in the process. At the Invasion pay-per-view in 2001, Angle would join the team WWF alongside Austin, Taker, Kane, and Chris Jericho to face off against the Alliance.
They'll pick us apart out there.
Pick us apart.
5 on 5.
What are you gonna do with this?
And count me in.
Count him in too.
Together, united we stand.
Divided we fall.
Where Austin would betray the WWF and hit Angle with a stunner, joining the Alliance, essentially launching their feud, where Austin was the traitor of the company going up against the American hero, leading Milkomania to run wild. The two would have a pretty brutal match at SummerSlam 2001, where Stone Cold comes out with the win, but Angle completely wins the fans over. It wouldn't be until the next month in his hometown of Pittsburgh where Angle would finally beat Austin to win the WWF Championship, in what was probably the most feel-good moment of that year, as it happened 1 month after 9/11. And unfortunately, 2 weeks later, he'd lose it back to Austin after a random heel turn from William Regal. Vince McMahon would suddenly recruit Angle to spy on the Alliance, while pretending to leave WWF's side, creating a dynamic where nobody knows whose side he's really on.
I still have my intensity, my integrity, and my intelligence.
At Survivor Series 2001, the WWF would face off against the Alliance in a winner-takes-all match, and Angle would betray the Alliance, hitting Austin with the title and helping The Rock pin him, leading to Team WWF winning the match, and leading to the end of the Alliance. The next night on Raw, Vince McMahon announced that he was the sole owner of WWF again, until Ric Flair made a shocking return after being gone for nearly a decade, and he would reveal that he secretly bought Shane and Stephanie's share of WCW, meaning he now owned 50% of the company alongside Vince McMahon. This led to a power struggle between the two, causing them to split brands, with Flair taking over Raw and McMahon taking over SmackDown. Angle would have a brief feud with Kane, leading to a match at WrestleMania with Angle picking up the win. Meanwhile, Flair and McMahon still continued to beef, giving us the first WWF draft. Angle would be drafted to SmackDown, and he would begin feuding with Edge. And though Angle was already a made man, this did wonders for Edge's career. And the two would face off the next month at Backlash, where Angle would pick up the win. This was a pretty heated feud, but it also was pretty comedic at the same time. This was the birth of the "You Suck" chants.
It's over. Play my music. No, don't play my music.
And though it's a chant literally saying he sucks, it became synonymous with Kurt for the rest of his career. The feud would take them into Judgment Day 2002 in a hair versus hair match, and this was one of the most memorable moments of Angle's career. Edge would pick up the win, Angle would get his head shaved kinda hilariously, thus giving us the conclusion of Kurt Angle with hair. By the way, this isn't a Keeps ad, but are you guys afraid of losing your hair? I am terrified. Later that night, a recently returning WWE Champion Hulk Hogan would lose the title to The Undertaker after some interference from Vince McMahon. And the next week on Smackdown, Angle began wearing headgear with a hairpiece attached to it. Kurt would interrupt a face-off between McMahon and Hulk Hogan. Later that night, during the culmination of Edge and Kurt Angle's feud, where the two were having a steel cage match, Hogan would cost Angle the match. And 2 weeks later, Hogan would challenge Kurt to a match at King of the Ring, to which he accepted. The two would face off at King of the Ring, where Angle would beat Hogan in what I would consider his most impressive accomplishment in wrestling, period. Throughout the rest of the year, he began teaming with Chris Benoit, where they went on to be the first ever WWE Tag Team Champions. And this is where we get the birth of the SmackDown 6. The SmackDown 6, consisting of Kurt Angle, Edge, Chris Benoit, Chavo Guerrero, Eddie Guerrero, and Rey Mysterio, were known as the pillars that pretty much carried SmackDown throughout this time period. And when you have talent of this caliber and Paul Heyman as the head writer, SmackDown was the best show WWE was producing at this time. The roster was full of up-and-coming talent with just enough vets being around to help them get over. Even this schmuck right here.
Ruthless aggression.
All three teams would face off in a triple threat tag team match for the tag team championships at Survivor Series, where Los Guerreros would pick up the win. And the next month, with WWE Champion Brock Lesnar being injured and Hall of Fame sleazeball Paul Heyman turning on him, Angle would defeat Big Show at Armageddon 2002 for the WWE Championship, becoming a 3-time WWE Champion, capping off a year that made me consider him one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. I was 5. He went into 2003 as the WWE Champion, where he picked up some proteges along the way, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, also known as the world's greatest tag team. And though he was at the top of the world, the sad reality was that all the work that he did in 2002 really did a number on his neck. It turns out he had been working hurt for months, and doctors began warning him that he would need surgery soon. Brock Lesnar would go on to win the 2003 Royal Rumble, and the buzz surrounding a Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar match had been going around since Brock Lesnar hit the scene, considering both of their backgrounds in wrestling prior to joining WWE. And Paul Heyman turning on Brock and joining Kurt Angle added another layer to the story. And I've noticed that Kurt's feuds always manage to have the right amount of intensity and comedy, making it a pretty entertaining experience all around.
Because you and I, we both know we're the best this business has to offer.
However, in the lead up, doctors begin telling Kurt that his neck is so damaged that if he wrestles at WrestleMania, he may risk being paralyzed. Vince McMahon even began preparing for Brock Lesnar versus Chris Benoit as a backup. But knowing that this is the biggest match of his career, Angle opts to wrestle instead, insisting that he'll drop the title to Brock and then go get the surgery. And despite being in agonizing pain and one of the competitors almost dying, the two put on a 5 out of 5 Don Cheadle all-time classic, with Lesnar picking up the win and both men walking away looking like the biggest stars in the company. Afterwards, Kurt would go on to reveal that this was the most painful night of his life. He'd proceed to get the neck surgery. However, instead of a standard procedure, he'd opt for a new minimally invasive procedure to speed up recovery. Pretty much meaning instead of being out for a year, he would be out for 4 months. And upon returning, he'd pick up right where he left off, feuding against Lesnar and subsequently Big Show, beating them in the triple threat match at Vengeance 2003, becoming a 4-time WWE champion. And his beef with Lesnar was still unfinished. The two would go on to have a 60-minute Iron Man match in what was the greatest SmackDown match in history. Hands down, nothing has touched this yet. Lesnar would end up winning 5-4, even giving us a nail-biter finish. And after this, Angle would take another step back, as he was dealing with some lingering neck pain. He'd return in time for Survivor Series, where Team Angle took on Team Lesnar, picking up the win with John Cena and Chris Benoit being the sole survivors. He would then compete in the Royal Rumble, making it all the way to the final 3 before being eliminated by the Big Show, who was then eliminated by Chris Benoit. So if I couldn't find any footage of this, you know why. He then tried to enter the title scene, feuding with the up-and-coming John Cena.
Can you feel that, Angle?
Straight up, I won't take your crap. You mess with me, and I will make you tap.
You're the American dream. I'm America's nightmare.
Angle would then go on to win a triple threat #1 contenders match for the WWE Championship versus John Cena and The Big Show, where Angle would pick up the win, and later that night, WWE would pull off one of the greatest underdog stories of all time, having Eddie Guerrero pin Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. The two were set to face off at WrestleMania, where Eddie Guerrero gave us one of the most memorable finishes to a match, picking up the win, and later that night celebrating with longtime friend Chris Benoit. And if I couldn't find any footage of this, you know why. Kurt would end up being injured during his match with Eddie Guerrero, causing him to take another step back from in-ring competition, leading to Vince McMahon appointing him as Smackdown GM. And Kurt has revealed in a recent interview that he's not too big a fan of the name Perk Angle. And in respect to that, fans have come up with the new name, Peak Angle. Whatever you want to call it, this is where it starts. Kurt immediately begins to abuse his power, humiliating superstars, especially The Big Show, causing Show to eventually snap and chokeslam Angle off the backstage platform on Smackdown. And the image of Angle laying there like a Family Guy character has lived rent-free in my head for over 20 years. As a kid, I literally thought he was dead. And in retaliation to this, as if my adolescent mind wasn't traumatized enough, after Big Show has a match with Eddie Guerrero, Kurt comes down to the ring, pulls a briefcase out from behind the announcer's desk, guess no one was suspicious there. He then pulls out a strap, and what kills me most is, this motherfucker crouches. He then proceeds to slide in the ring and shoot the Big Show. This is on national television. Angle then proceeds to shave Big Show's head, and I'm literally getting PTSD from watching this. I didn't know what a tranquilizer gun was. Soon after, Angle would be fired as SmackDown GM after it was revealed that he was kayfabe faking his injury the whole time. And the way he didn't die from that platform falling, yeah, there's no way this nigga was injured. He was then replaced by Teddy Long, introducing the one-on-one with The Undertaker era. Upon his return, Kurt would continue his feud with Eddie Guerrero, as the two remained to have beef even during Kurt's GM run. This leading to a match between the two at SummerSlam 2004, where Kurt would pick up the win. This is also around the time of the Daniel Puder incident, where Kurt would challenge a group of tough enough contestants to an impromptu shoot-style match on SmackDown.
You want to get in the ring?
Kurt's not through.
You want to get in the ring with me? Get your in the ring.
Where contestant Daniel Puder would step to Kurt, locking in a Kimura before Kurt would quickly pin him, and the referee luckily counting the 3. And the whole incident essentially led to Daniel Puder being buried and often hazed by vets. By January of 2005, Angle would declare himself for the Royal Rumble, while also having a match set up between him, JBL, and Big Show for the WWE Championship. After losing the championship match earlier in the night, he would enter the Royal Rumble at number 20 before being eliminated by Shawn Michaels. Oh hey, it's Daniel Puder.
A little teamwork. Look at his shot. I'll tell you what, like,
Being highly upset at this, a foaming at the mouth Kurt Angle absolutely beats the shit out of Shawn Michaels, eliminating him from the Royal Rumble. Still being in the championship picture, the next month at No Way Out 2005, after competing for a #1 contenders tournament for the WWE Championship, Angle would make it all the way to the finals where he met John Cena, who was still looking for a way to capture the WWE Championship after that all-time great Royal Rumble botch the month before. The two would have a great match where John Cena would give a star-making performance and Cena would pick up the win. After No Way Out, Kurt would cross over to the Raw brand, specifically to target HBK.
Well, I got a little surprise for you.
Where he would vow to outdo every major moment in Shawn Michaels' life, including the moment he sang his own theme song, leading to Kurt giving us the most iconic version of himself, Sexy Kurt.
Sexy Kurt, I'll make your ankle hurt. Ankle lock again.
This all led to the match between Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21. And in my opinion, this is the second greatest match Shawn Michaels has ever had at WrestleMania. Maybe, I don't know, there's a lot. Kurt would come out with the win, and after being all wheelchaired up last year, this really re-established him as the best wrestler in the world. The feud would continue, and the two had a rematch at Vengeance 2005, with Shawn picking up the win and their final match happening on an episode of Raw, ending in a draw with Kurt declining overtime. And though fans cheered both men when the match was over, Kurt was still peaking, which is why after all of this, he began his insane feud with Booker T. It started as any other feud, with Angle just saying he was better than Booker T. And well, somehow it unfolded into this.
I want to have sex with your wife. Bestiality sex with your wife.
Angle and Booker would continue to trade wins back and forth, with Booker T coming out with the final win before going on to win the King of the Ring. And yeah, by this point, I wasn't allowed to watch Kurt Angle anymore. And Kurt's go on to say that he hates the storyline. In January of 2006, Batista would vacate the World Heavyweight Championship due to injury, leading Kurt Angle to win a Battle Royal, becoming the new World Heavyweight Champion. And he'd go on to defend the title against Mark Henry, The Undertaker, in a 4 out of 5 Don Cheadle match, before going on to defend the championship at WrestleMania 22 against Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio, where Rey Mysterio would win the World Heavyweight Championship in honor of Eddie Guerrero. After Mania, behind the scenes, he's completely falling apart, reportedly suffering from multiple neck, back, and hamstring injuries, as well as broken ribs, and his dependency on painkillers began to worsen behind the scenes. Despite this, he continues to wrestle every single week, even competing on the WWE European Tour while still dealing with many of these injuries. In mid-2006, WWE would relaunch ECW as a third brand. Paul Heyman would introduce Kurt as the new star of ECW, and he had a bit of a new look to himself. A new black mouth guard, darker gear. It was actually pretty cool. And WWE's early version of ECW actually looked pretty promising. Kurt would pretty much squash jobbers and ECW originals for weeks at a time. He would call out Randy Orton at ECW One Night Stand, where he would pick up the win pretty decisively. And by this point, Kurt was pretty much the face of ECW. He was set to feud against RVD for the ECW Championship, but he was pulled abruptly from TV after re-aggravating some injuries. And around this time, WWE doctors and management would express concerns about Kurt's physical state and addiction issues, with Kurt refusing to go to rehab. And in August of 2006, both management and Kurt would reach their breaking point. Vince would sit down with Angle and give him an ultimatum between rehab or a release. And by the end of the conversation, Kurt would request his release from WWE, which was granted August 25th, 2006, later admitting that he handled the situation completely wrong, as he clearly had a problem taking up to 65 painkillers per day. Soon after, Kurt would take his talents to TNA, where he would miraculously go on to have a longer career there than he did in WWE, which I actually plan on covering in the near future, so subscribe for that. Road to 10K. Angle would make his return to the WWE 11 years later in 2017, where he would underwhelmingly take the role of Raw GM while wrestling very occasionally. His first match back was at TLC 2017, where Angle would join the Shield's Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins to defeat a team of Braun Strowman, Kane, The Miz, Sheamus, and Cesaro in a TLC match, in what was an incredible showing for Kurt, being his first match back. Meanwhile, he began getting random texts and calls backstage, later revealing that he has an illegitimate son, that being half of up-and-coming tag team American Alpha's Jason Jordan. And man, it's like they just couldn't wait to do some goofball shit with Kurt. And he would simultaneously feud with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon's The Authority. Kurt would continuously be accused of nepotism, while Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins would go on to win the tag team championship, while butting heads the entire time. And the storyline was cut short once Jason Jordan ironically was forced to retire due to a neck injury. Later, Angle would join Team Raw to face off against Team Smackdown at Survivor Series, and his feud with The Authority would culminate at WrestleMania 35, where he would team up with Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. He'd go on to get some Saudi money, entering the Greatest Royal Rumble before being eliminated by Elias, and even qualifying for the WWE World Cup at Crown Jewel, being eliminated by Dolph Ziggler. By this point, Kurt was kind of just a novelty on the roster, there to put over younger talent and not much else. On the March 11, 2019 episode of Raw, Angle announced that he was going to retire at WrestleMania 35, leading to a bit of a farewell tour, but you know how WWE is with those. He'd have pretty solid matches against Chad Gable, Samoa Joe, and AJ Styles, and afterwards, he began feuding with Baron Corbin to finish out his career, with Corbin pinning Angle at WrestleMania 35, giving fans one of the most disappointing endings to one of the most respected careers of all time. Angle later revealed that he requested John Cena to be his last match, to which Vince McMahon declined. In fact, it was pretty clear to everyone, including Angle, that Vince was trying to bury him on the way out. And though he doesn't get the storybook ending that he deserved, the legacy and legitimacy that Kurt Angle brought to the wrestling industry is one that I don't think will ever be forgotten.